Hello, and thank you for joining today's TruVue Frequently Asked Questions Part 2 presentation. My name is Owen Tuttle, and I'll be walking you through 7 of the most frequently asked questions that we receive here at TruVue. So let's get started. With the growth of Optium Museum Acrylic, it's somewhat common for us to get questions about the price of Optium. So why is Optium Museum Acrylic expensive? Well, quite frankly, many consumers view Optium Museum Acrylic as a good value. Once they understand the features and the benefits, quite a few consumers now are more than willing to pay for it. Also, compared to other TruVue glazing products, the price of Optium is impacted by the raw substrate. You may be surprised to hear this, but acrylic is actually more expensive for us to source than glass. In addition, the price is impacted by the special coatings and special equipment required to produce Optium Museum Acrylic. How much should I charge for Optium Museum Acrylic, and what is a good retail markup? Well, in addition to providing competitive pricing for your market, which is obviously very important, what you charge for Optium Museum Acrylic should also be based on your operating costs and your desired margins. Industry experts provide helpful guidance for retail pricing. For example, TruVue has an Optium Museum Acrylic suggested retail price list, which is available by emailing TruVue at framers@truvue.com or by calling TruVue's Framer helpline at 800-282-8788. Also, KB Consulting has what's called a Rule of Three retail pricing strategy, which can be found on their website at www.kbconsultingforbusiness.com, and more specifically under their Rule of Three pricing strategy on their website. Where can I get Optium Museum Acrylic larger than 72 by 120 inches? It is true that TruVue maxes out at 72 by 120 inches when we produce the original sheet of Optium Museum Acrylic. However, there is a company located in Greenfield, Massachusetts called Small Corp, which can seam 2 pieces of Optium Museum Acrylic together to make one larger sheet, and it's nearly impossible to see the seam. In terms of fading and the degradation of artwork, sometimes we get the question, why did the art fade when I framed it with conservation grade glazing? Well, it's true that conservation grade glazing products from TruVue provide 99% UV protection, and we all know that ultraviolet rays are very damaging to artwork. However, other factors that contribute to the degradation and fading of art include heat, humidity, air pollution, acids, quality of the paper, and quality of the inks. So although we do a great job in protecting the artwork from damaging ultraviolet rays, ultraviolet energy, there are a number of other contributing factors. Why do I see reflection when the piece is framed with anti-reflective glazing? Well, first of all, no anti-reflective glazing completely blocks all reflection. But the anti-reflective coatings really are designed to work best when viewed at a 90-degree angle with no bright light directly behind the viewer. So in some cases, it kind of depends on where it's hung. So depending upon the angle of the light source, you could see some reflection. You may be able to reduce or eliminate the reflection by simply relocating the picture on the wall either up or down, or possibly side to side, or relocating the light source. You know, a lot of times when I get this question, it's because there's sunlight coming in a window directly behind the viewer. But as that shifts and the sun starts to move from one side of the window to the other, typically that reflection goes away. Can I get more glass specifiers? Well, TruVue provides museum glass and Optium Museum Acrylic specifiers, plus we have a brand new 3-piece specifier that includes conservation clear glass, museum glass, and Optium Museum Acrylic, all in one specifier. These specifiers help framers show each product on the consumer's art during the design process. So I happen to have all three with me today. So here's the museum glass specifier. It's in a simple frame that can be just simply laid flat over the consumer's artwork so that they can see what their art looks like through museum glass. As I mentioned, we also have one for Optium Museum Acrylic. Same size, same concept. And then we do have the new three-piece specifier, which has Optium Museum Acrylic on the right, museum glass in the center, excuse me, and conservation clear glass on the left. So this is kind of a neat specifier because it can be laid on the artwork and the consumer can actually compare all three products directly on their piece. You can order your free specifiers at www.truvue.com or by calling the TruVue Framers Helpline at 800-282-8788, or you can email TruVue and request a specifier at framers@truvue.com. Does my distributor stock the new small size single sheet Optium Museum Acrylic products? You may be unaware, but we recently launched 4 new small sizes of Optium, which can be ordered from your distributors in individual sheets. You no longer have to buy a full box or a large sheet. Those sizes are 16 by 20, 20 by 24, 24 by 32, and 32 by 40. Most distributors stock the small sizes, but please check with your distributors on availability and pricing, and don't be afraid if they don't currently offer it to suggest that they contact TruVue and talk about bringing those in. I hope you find these answers helpful, and maybe you've had some of these questions but just didn't have an opportunity to ask those yet. So we appreciate your time today, and we greatly appreciate your business. Take care.